Good.
My name is Darrin Malone. I am I'm a field development tech consultant for DuPont Crop Protection. I work with our seed team, our Pioneer seed team, and working with their agronomy team. I've got the southern region, which covers the Mid-South and Southeast. So what I'm going to do today is cover a little bit on approach premium. We took this pack. We didn't have a lot of in-house data on approach premium on Pioneer, soybean and corn varieties, so we wanted to create a data set this year. So I'm going to show you some of that data. I'm going to look at some of our DuPont burn down, plus residual and at-plant herbicides. When you think about weed control today, you got to layer chemistries, and I'll kind of focus on some of the products where we can layer, our chemistry to have better, to help control some of those resistant weeds. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Extend, and then we've got some new technology called Bolt. That's a new non-GMO trait, kind of a super STS trait, a dual mode of action trait, and I'll discuss that as well. First and foremost, I'm going to start looking at these are on-farm demonstration trials that we set up with our field agronomy team, our Pioneer field agronomy team. The data we were collecting was basically yield. We did collect some severity ratings when possible as well in some of these trials. But when you start looking at our corn trials, we had about 6 locations scattered throughout the Mid-South and the Southeast, Arkansas, Kentucky, the Mississippi, Georgia, and Alabama. If you look at the Georgia and Alabama site, we've been working there for probably 4 or 5 years. That's our Gulf Coast site, so we can get some really good southern rust pressure. So we continue to work. But if you look at the pressure, we had pretty good pressure in Arkansas and southern rust. If you look at our Kentucky location, of course, we had gray leaf spot, which you'd expect, a little bit of southern rust. That southern rust there came from that tropical storm. We actually had some southern rust a little bit further to the north this year than we normally do in that northern Mid-South area. If you look at Leland, we had a little bit of southern rust, northern leaf blight. The same as in Slater, Mississippi. And then I had Georgia and Fairhope there. Down in Alabama, we had southern rust as well. And I'll focus on soybeans on some other subsequent slides. But we put together a piano chart because I just wanted to look at the yield response. This is yield response in bushels per acre. Each one of these bars is an observation against the untreated check. When you look at all that data, we had 29 looks this year, 29 observations. In 20 of those 29 looks, we had a positive yield response. When I mean positive yield response, which is above 6 bushels. Our break-even point this year was 6 bushels for the application and the cost of the herbicide, cost of the fungicide. So that's about $22 per acre. So about 70% of the time we had a positive return on our investment by making that approach premium application. Now all these applications, we had 7 locations, again the 29 looks. We timed that application around R1. We might have had one, we might have had one that went out of PT, but the majority of those applications went out of light brown silk. I want to break it out, just look at the total net average. We pulled all that data. If you look at this is in yield bushels per acre, and then we pulled the data across locations where we had the approach premium, we had 196 bushels per acre, and then on the untreated we had 184 bushels per acre. It's just taking all that piano chart and putting that data in a couple bar charts. So again, we had 11 bushel response across that data set. Yes, sir.
Were the yield differentials that you were showing there, were they pretty much equal with the amount of intensity of the southern rust?
It's a good question. Last year I had better pressure on southern rust than the Carolinas, and we saw some big swings on yield response. Our best site this year was in Winchester in southeast Arkansas. We had about a 14 bushel response at that site. The rust in that particular area came in late.
Yeah.
Came in around R3. We made the application around R2. And so I think if it would come in at tassel like it does, down in South Georgia or the Gulf Coast of Alabama, you can see some of those bigger yield responses. But we did have a pretty snipped right at 15 bushels. So yeah. So if you get a severity level up around 7 on that flag leaf, it's about in the ear leaf, and it's replicating, moving up that stalk, that's when you can really get some significant yield reductions. But I'll show you a picture of some of that rust here. It's a good straightening, good question. But we also wanted to look at some of the trials we said. We were looking at 2 different varieties, looking at hybrid response. When you take a look at, we had 1197, which is one of our leader hybrids. We had 1637, 1739, and 1916. So we wanted to look at, did we see an interaction between hybrids and yield response? Some of these, when you look at 1916, a little bit more defensive in nature. We wanted to see if it had in the 1637, maybe not quite as defensive, more of a racehorse type hybrid. But when we looked at all the hybrids, that we at least had a 10 bushel response across all hybrids. Now, when we compared 1637 to 1916, we had actually 3 locations. 4th location was damaged and you get the yield off of it. But as you can see, I didn't run statistics on this, but numerically the 1637 had a 15 bushel response versus a 1916 at 11 bushel response. Now, we saw some of the same trends last year. 1637, and Kelly could probably tell you, it's pretty responsive to a fungicide application. So, I would say that if we ran stats on this over a couple-year period, we'd see it would be significantly probably better than the 1916. So, when you think about hybrids, some hybrids are a little more responsive, and we are showing that 1197 and 1637 being somewhat responsive, more responsive than some of the other hybrids that we looked at. This is that field in Winchester, and this is disease coming in here around R3. We made the application around R2. Application day was the 16th of July. We had southern rust. We actually went out by aerial application, and we had 7 gallons of water, so we were able to get our volume up there. We had a couple different populations here. We had 34,000 and I think 38,000, but the trend was the same across populations. So, but when you look at that, you notice a premature death, right? Notice the staging where we made the approach premium application. Remember, the strobe effect. Approach premium is a strobe with a triazole. It's a dual mode of action fungicide, but you're seeing that true strobe effect, keeping the leaf alive longer, able to capture more sunlight, push more sugars and energies into that ear, and henceforth we can make more yield. And that particular site, when we averaged the data, we had about a 14 bushel response. Now I'll go to the soybean data real quick. If you look to your right, we had about 6 locations here, and that data was scattered from Alabama to Kentucky, Mississippi, and Tennessee, West Tennessee. And when you look at what disease pressure we had, FLS is frog eye leaf spot, and we had frog eye leaf spot at all locations. And our pressure, I would say, would be low to moderate across the area. We didn't have any heavy frog eye leaf spot at these locations. The other thing about pioneer varieties, they're fairly defensive against frog eye leaf spot. So normally, we don't have any right now in our lineup that's probably below 4. Everything's got some resistance. Most of them are 5 and up. And I'll break out a little bit of that data based on the disease susceptibility of some of the varieties. But if you look at that in the piano chart, we had about 19 observations, 19 looks. We had about 3.7 bushel per average. Now, most of these applications were made at the R3 timing, and 70% of the time, our break even was at 2.5 bushels. So 70% of the time, we had a positive return on the investment. Now, if you look at historical data, it's about 2.5 bushels. So we're kind of trending upwardly over the historical data. So a nice data set to kind of get started on pioneer varieties. Now, looking at just total net yield on the vertical axis, yield in bushels per acre. On the approach premium, we're running about 75.1 and then 71.4. Now, that's a pretty high number, but we had one site we were averaging over 90 bushels per acre in the South Delta, Mississippi. So, but we averaged 3.7 compared to the untreated. This is that. Now I want to kind of show you the comparison against varieties. I only had 3 looks at 47T36, which is our leading late group 4, and then we had 94Y82, which only had 1 look there. But I want to focus on these 2 middle ones. What we want to do on this trial, we wanted to set it up. We want to look at 48T53, which is a very defensive soybean variety for us on frog eye leaf spot, and then 50T64 is average on frog eye leaf spot. And we wanted to see if there was a difference, in the level of tolerance with the fungicide application. But really, when you think about it, it was kind of an inverse relationship. The 50T64 is a little more susceptible to frog eye leaf spot, but we saw a greater yield response with the 48T53. I had 5 side-by-side looks, even though I had 8 locations. At a couple locations, I didn't get a direct comparison. But even when you made the direct comparison, you saw a numerically stronger yield with the 48T53. So I guess what I'm saying, some varieties do respond differently. Just because you may have a more defensive variety doesn't always mean you see a greater yield response. We saw the greatest yield response where we had the most defensive variety. We thought we would see a greater yield response with 50T64, but it was the exact opposite of that. This was you can't see it quite as good here, but if you look on the right, I think you can see some of the cercospora and frog eye leaf spot on the left. This was an R3 application in Leland, Mississippi. And this site here, Brewer Blessed put this out. He's one of our product agronomists. We had about a 3 bushel response. But you see the plant health. And then when you look at it, just taking the leaf, one of the trifoliates, taking a look at frog eye leaf spot, you saw greater disease protection on fry leaf spot with the approach premium. Remember, these applications have 6.8 ounces or fluid ounces of approach premium, and we time that at R3, which is early pod set. Just quick summary, it was 11 bushel response versus the untraded. On the corn, we had a positive return on investment about 70% of the time. And then if you look at 1197 and 1637, they seem to have the greatest yield response, a little bit more suitable for some fungicide applications. And then all the hybrids that we tested had about a 10 bushel response compared to the untreated. So a really good data set that we can give our territory managers and help position approach premium. On soybeans, we had about a 3.7 bushel response. If you look at the historical average, it's about 2.5 bushels, I said earlier. About 70% of the time, both corn and beans, we had the same return on investment, whether it was corn or beans. And 48T53 seemed to be a little more responsive than the 50T64 in these trials we looked at 5 locations. Now we'll jump into weed management. I'm a weed guy by training, so I'll talk to you a little bit about some burn down applications. Also, one of our key products of burn down is lead off. And then one of our newer kind of at-plant herbicides is Trivians. It's a metribuzin containing 3 mode of action type herbicide. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of our burn down stuff as well as include some of the at-plant. When I think of weed control, I kind of break it up into 3 different looks. When I think if you got to get started clean, whether you're using tillage or whether you're using a burn down residual, really doesn't matter. The main focus here is to start clean and be clean at planting. And then the next focus when I think about weed control are pre-emerge or at-plant herbicides. If you think about resistance, and now everybody's got probably resistant pigweeds on their farm, it's key to get a pre-at-plant. If you don't, you get behind the 8 ball and you never get caught up on pigweed. And then early post, and this market's changed a little bit. As you know, post-residual type space, you're not only trying to control what's there, but adding another residual. And when you think about overlap of residuals, it's really important to help manage some of these resistant weeds. So burn down residual, go ahead and get your marriage tail out of the way, get your winter annuals out of the way, come in with a good, solid, broadleaf residual type herbicide, work to provide control in pigweeds as well as your morning glories. And then early post, if you're really managing resistant weeds, it's really important that you get a post residual in there as well. Keys to success, as I mentioned, you need effective burn down. Tillage if necessary. You need to prevent emergence, especially on some of the resistant species. Once a pigweed gets out of the ground, it's really hard to control. Once it gets over 2 inches, it's dang near impossible at times. So, especially with our conventional herbicides, you want to prevent the emergence. When I think about chemistries, if you think about the burn down space, that's where we really do well from DuPont. We've got a lot of early pre-plant residuals that we sell in the space. And when I think about going out early, I think on the LS chemistry, go ahead and get your marriage tail out of the way, as I mentioned earlier, your hen bit, your chickweed type weeds. And then when you think about planting, PPOs, chloracetamides are dual type products. You'll hear me say chloracetamides, that would be like on the total core. And then also your triazines in corn, PPOs in soybeans. PPOs have been the foundation for soybean weed control planting. And then you think about, when you get in crop, you think about multiple modes of action, combos that you can make those applications early post, give you some residual, and it does require multiple applications. Just the old days, just making 2 applications and walking away is probably over. So think about season-long control. You even got to think about maybe removal of pigweeds. Sometimes that may be wigweed and maybe chopping, whatever it may be, to keep them from going to seed. I think that's one of my messages. This is a burn down opportunity. But looking at our portfolio, as I say, we kind of got a plethora of products. We've got some really good products for you guys to utilize. We started selling Foria this past year, and I'll tell you a little bit about it. It's a multi-crop type product. The good thing about a Foria for us is you can put this in front of rice or grain sorghum, but it also has flexibility to all the other native crops in the southern region. Now, lead off is another flex acre herbicide. You can use it in front of cotton, soybeans, and corn. And then we've got Canopy X. I've been around a long time, and Canopy products are really beautiful pre-plant herbicide. But the only thing about EX you need to remember, once you dedicate to that acre, you're dedicated to soybeans. The good thing about these other 2, you've got some flexibility on planting. And then we've got First Shot. If I'm from Arkansas, and we grow a lot of rice, a little bit over 1 million acres, but First Shot probably goes on every acre. So you got smart weeds and trying to manage it at planting or 2 weeks ahead of planting on rice. It's a great tank mix partner with your Roundup. Short residual, but it also has good flexibility back to other crops. I know in the cotton market, where you plant interseed weed in the middles, We do a lot in Boudreaux, Missouri, and we use a lot of first shot and 2,4-D out early back then. So there's a lot of utility, kind of a non-residual based type herbicide. This is some work that I just recently had put out. This was applied on Pearl Harbor Day, which is December 7th. I took the picture on the 27th. This is a foria. I talked to you a little bit about a foria earlier. If you look at the weeds present, we had Poana, which is annual bluegrass. We had henbit, and we had marysville. Kind of the key mid-south type winter annuals. On this particular field, we ran a foria at 2.5 ounces. So of course, we tank mix it with glyphosate and 2,4-D. And if you got emerged marysville, the foria won't control the emerged marysville, so you need to add some 2,4-D to take that out. So this is a true fall application. The good thing about a foria, it's got 3 active ingredients. It's got 2 modes of action. It's a group 14 and a group 2. It is a mixture of Valor as well as what we call first shot. So the tribenuron, thiophansulfuron components, they make up what is called first shot. So you can put it out by ground or air. When you think about the components, if you put out 2.5 ounces, that gives you about 2 ounces of Valor and about 1/2 ounce of first shot. So a lot of guys use 1/2 ounce of first shot as kind of an additional burn down product. Especially on henbit, if you think about henbit being a problem, which it is, especially in the South Delta, you know, first shot's a really good product in that space. Of course, you can tank mix it with 2,4-D, dicam, or glyphosate. Well, I'm going to set this up. We got percent control on the vertical axis. Then we got different weed species on the horizontal. Now, this blue bar is lead off. This red bar is Canopy X, and the green bar is Euphoria. What I want to do is focus on some of the key weeds. I'm not going to look at every, but look at the 90% control level. This is what we deem as, you know, being acceptable in terms of. This was actually most of these applications went out 4 to 6 weeks ahead of planting, and we went in and made a kind of a winter weed control rating at planting. But when you look at those particular species, we'll focus on henbit. Not a lot of difference between those 3 particular herbicides. Whether it be lead off, Canopy X, or Ford, we saw equal control on that species. Now, when you look at that on marysville, another key one, if you look at across all the other weeds, of course, you've got all the common stuff that are there. You've got buttercup, gratis, common chickweed, sow thistle, you know, really good control, you know, pushing 100% control. Now, on marysville, the Ford wasn't quite as good as the lead off, quite as good as the EX. I wouldn't expect it to be. When you think about LS chemistry, that's what's in Canopy X, what's in lead off. It's just a little bit stronger residual on marysville. So it's doing what it's supposed to do, actually, Euphoria. You know, it is a Valor-based product. So, you know, really when you think about those 3 products, you can take any of those to the bank and have good weed control going in the plant. This was a new product. I was testing a new concept here. This was in that same field, but a different treatment. We're going to launch Velotrex, you know, in the fall of 2016. Be ready for the use season 2017. But it's a new Flex Acre dicamba-based herbicide that we'll launch. Like I said, it will be in the fall, but they will have opportunity to sell it next spring and next winter. So I'm looking forward to having a dicamba-based product. It is a dry dicamba. This is a true dispersible product. But again, when you think about what we've got to offer from the burn down residual, you know, we got a decline of it. We got a lot of products. We got Euphoria, which I alluded to. You got lead off and Canopy. And of course, you got the non-residual burn down, which is first shot. Now we'll move to at plant. And to me, this is your core for managing Palmer pigweed. You got to get this right. You need to get it out. You need to get it activated, and you need to overlap those residuals. And we've got 3. I'm going to talk about one product today, Trivence. It's probably our strongest product for Palmer pigweed. It's a 3 mode of action product. And then if you know, David will tell you his lead product in his market is probably Canopy or Envive. They're both really good products. Envive is our Valor-based product. You think about Canopy, I've been around long enough, 25 years now. I did my master's research on Canopy. It's an old workhorse. It's a metribuzin containing plus quinine ethyl product. You can put it with, if you're going to use Canopy, just, you don't remember one thing I tell you today, tank mix it with metolachlor or some other chlorocetamide. That gives you 3 modes of action at planting for pigweed. Now, if you don't remember anything else, I'll tell you. But that's an oldie but goodie. You can take that herbicide and mix it with, you know, with metolachlor, whether it be cinch, whether it be dual, or mix it with Zidua, something like that, and you've got a really good at-plant herbicide. But I'm going to talk to you about Trivence today. It's a 3 mode of action. This will be our second year to really go to market this product. It's got Classic, it's got Valor, it's got Metribuzin. Everybody remembers those Syncorn Lexone. Of course, that's a PS2, that's a PPO, that's an ALS. So that it's, I call it a tri-mode of action. So that's the reason why I say it's probably our strongest on pigweed. You've got multiple modes of action to give you activity on some of these resistant species that we have in the Mid-South and Southeast. The good thing about all three actives, I'm not going to go through the words here, but we have contact control and we have residual control. Why is the contact important? A lot of times when we get to planting, our burn down residuals kind of played out, and we're right there planting. What do we have showing up? A lot of times you'll get pigweed showing up right at planting. Or you may have some other, but if you want to really heat up your gramoxone, Travents is a great way to do it. You've got a little bit of metribuzin in there, slows down your drop of gramoxone, makes it work a little bit more effective. It's really hot treatment. And then of course you get the residual control from all three components, which is important, helping manage these resistant weeds. I want to show you a couple data charts on percent control in the vertical. We got different bars, Travents, Envibe, Canopy, Boundary, and Fierce. So it gives you a couple competitors. It gives you our in-house, standards as well. But numerically on pigweed control, this is no follow-up applications. This is straight looking at Travents and the other competitive products. And these ratings are about 60 to 120 days after application. And we had about 25 looks. So we had variance in when we made the ratings. But when you look at Travents, numerically it was providing greater control of pigweed. Now is there a lot of big difference between 89 and 90? Probably not. We're not going to probably see it with eye, but 5% on pigweed is a big difference, okay? You got 95 versus 90, you got 10 million seed per acre. That is a big darn deal, right? So, we've got a good product. We've helped manage Palmer pigweed at planting. One weed we forget about, pitted morning glory. Roundup's always been kind of weak on pitted morning glory. Most of our chemistry's been pretty good, whether it be post, whether it be pre, the same comparison. But when you start looking at Boundary and Fierce, Fierce is a little bit weak on morning glory. The residual component, it's a grass herbicide. The Valor's not real strong on morning glory either. So you see a nice uptick when you look at Travents. It's got that metribuzin, that classic component, 84%. It was 5 points better than anything else. But even Canopy's 80 and then Invite 79. So some of the other weeds we may have, like tea-weed or pitted morning glory, one thing about our clean around based products, you get a little bit broader spectrum than some of these other broadleaves that are out there. Just in review, I've covered Euphoria, which is a multi-crop. The good thing about Euphoria, we can rotate back to grain sorghum and rice, which we can't with leadoff. And then if you get Canopy X, more of a dedicated acre for that burn application. And then Travents, a new tri-mode of action that we can use at planting or use it in. Normally when I say at plant, I mean either 2 weeks ahead of the planter or right behind the planter. Personally, I like it right behind the planter because you can extend out your residual control in your crop. Envibe, probably our leading pre-emerge herbicide in the Mid-South as well as the Southeast. And you got the oldie but goodie, Canopy. I would just put a chloracetamide based chemistry with that, give you that other mode of action. Of course, we're going to have something new in 2017. That'll be Veltrex. That'll be that new dicamba based burn down herbicide that we'll launch for the 17 season. It's going to be a good herbicide for us. Just real quick, looking at resistance. I like this chart because when you think about the intensive use of glyphosate, you think of the Midwest, think of the Mid-Delta region, even out west where you're intensively trying to use glyphosate, that's where we've seen the most resistance. Now, I guess our claim for fame in the Mid-South, we have the most resistant weeds of any area probably in the country. That means we probably overutilized our glyphosate in that space. But if you think about Mississippi and Arkansas, they've got 7 to 8 resistant species within those 2 states. Guess what? We got more to deal with now. We got PPO resistance. I think all of us have read. You know the story. We got it in Arkansas and got it in Tennessee. So as you can see, this was a well-timed application of Flex Start. They were in the right range, up to 2 inches, and we probably missed 50% of it. We've got that in probably 7 counties in the state of Arkansas and multiple counties in West Tennessee. Yes, sir, Bill?
4 in Mississippi now.
Got 4, so okay. Hadn't been confirmed. They suspect that we have it in Kentucky. They suspect we have it in Boudin, Missouri. You said in Mississippi, 4 states. Hadn't heard back from Louisiana.
Some in Louisiana too.
Some in Louisiana. I wouldn't be surprised.
They got it from Haiti.
Sure.
Got it from Haiti, maybe down there, and they have
Yep.
their route.
Yeah. So that's just something we're going to have to deal with. I mean, I don't think the sky's falling, guys, at all, but I think we're going to manage it, you know, the PPO-based chemistry. I think the pre's, we're still going to probably get some activity from the pre's. I think all the good things that PPOs do for they're going to give you a lot of weed control. So, but there are going to be some areas that when we go out to spray a Flex Star post, then we're not going to get good activity on that resistant pig weed. So we're going to have to manage that. So where do we go from here? You know, I'd say, oh, man. Let's say that way, this way. I like this slide. Well, one place we're going is probably extended soybeans. Piners are going to have an aggressive launch of extended soybeans. Now, of course, we've got to get exported further. You know, for this year, I'm not real sure. I mean, I can't really tell you what we have. I think we'll get the export approval probably first quarter, you know, of this year. But I'm not sure about the chemistry registration yet, so we'll just have to kind of play it by ear. But my gut tells me now we'll be able to sell some of the extended varieties, you know, but we'll not have the chemistry available for this year. That's my gut telling me. No one's told me that within the company, but my gut tells me that. But let's talk a little bit about some of the benefits of glyphosate and dicamba. And one unique thing about both these actives is they're very systemic, you know, in the plant. Being that they're very systemic, you know, Weed Science 101 means you don't need as much volume. So, you know, when you think of a liberty-based program, you need a lot of volume, a lot of coverage. Well, with our dicamba glyphosate, it's systemic. You're not going to need quite as much coverage, and you can run a little bit lower gallonage as well. Again, moves in the phloem, moves in the xylem, which means it can move up and down in the plant. Another thing we've seen in some of the plots that we've had out, some of our training plots, and we've seen a little bit of soil residual from the dicamba. It's not a slam dunk by any means. I would call it minimal additive residual control is what I would call it. So, this is when I think about resistant weeds throughout the heart, you know, throughout the farming belt in the country. When you think about being able to control palmer, water hemp in the mid-south, in the Midwest, kochia in the plains, giant rag through the, you know, the Ohio River Valley, and then mare's tail just basically everywhere in the mid-south as well as the Midwest. So one thing that I've found with this chemistry and dicamba, and if you want to control ragweed, it's dynamite. It's really effective, and we're able to control up to 4 to 6 inch pig weeds, you know, with the chemistry. So, you know, we're pending the export approvals. You know, China's got to pass that as well as Europe. So we're kind of waiting until that gets approved, and then after that, we'll submit our chemistry applications. But it's a good, probably 2017 before we can launch some of the chemistry labels. Real quick, you know, who's going to have the dicamba-based products? We're going to have a Fexapan product. It will be a low volatile dicamba that will be available. When you think about some of the Monsanto formulations, they'll have Roundup Extend with a vapor grip. Remember, that's glyphosate plus dicamba. And then they'll also have an XtendiMax, which is a low volatile dicamba as well. And then the 1691, we actually looked at 1691 this past year. We sprayed about 1,000 acres of production soybean this year. And we wanted to take a look at it across the U.S. to get a better feel for dicamba and the stewardship issues around involving making those applications. We didn't really have a lot of issues. Now, we did put pyrethroid target with that just to make sure to keep it, you know, to keep it intact and not let it move on us. Our results were good on weed control, and we weren't allowed to make one application. So I had experience this year with a 1691, and it looked fine. We had good weed control, and it stayed in place for the most part. BASF's going to have a formulation as well. It's a new salt called Ingenua. And then, of course, in all these formulations will be, of these 3 products, you're not going to be able to take a high volatile formulation and use it on these round 32 crops. It's going to have to be one of these 3 formulations. It'll have to be Ingenua, XtendiMax, Roundup Extend, or Fexapan. That's the only products that will be labeled on these crops. So stay tuned for the label and use directions. You know, some of that's still being worked out currently, you know, as we move through the commercialization of these products. Real quick I like this slide because you know, basically when you have the acid ion within dicamba, that's what makes it volatile. So the dimethylene formulations, those DMAs, like, you know, everybody remembers Bamble, and then came DGA formulation, which was dicamba, but the old DMAs, they move around. They're very volatile, they're going to move, which means they move in gas. If you got the right environmental conditions, they can get up and move to the next field. The good thing about these new low volatile drift, what they've done is reduce the amount of ionization of hydrogen, basically acid within that solution. So if you take that acid, dicamba acid, you got less of those ions, you got less potential for volatility. So when you think this would be a low volatile formulation, as you notice the The small blue circles, that's the dicamba acid ion. As you notice over here, this is a DMA formulation like a Banville. You've got more of those acid ions. So you get less volatility with a low drift volatile dicamba. This is a great slide from a stewardship standpoint. The main thing you want to remember, we're going to try to make those applications between 3 and 10 miles per hour. And a lot of times, when I was measuring wind this past year, I would think that the wind speed would be 12 miles an hour, and then when I got out there and measured, it was about 8 miles an hour. So when you get a wind anemometer out there, it's not as big as you think it is. Even though it seems that way, but sometimes you may think it's a 12, it could be an 8. But tank mist guidelines, there'll be some requirements that you cannot use AMS. You can use a water conditioner, or approved water conditioner, but you will not be able to use AMS. What you're going to do if you put AMS in that tank, what you're going to make more dicamba acid ions. So you're going to make that, you're going to take that formulation, potentially, let's say a low volatile formulation, and make it like the old formulation. You got more acid ions, they're going to be more volatile. So that's going to be that's something that we'll have to pay close attention to. Just don't add it. Everything will have to be approved with the dicamba applications. You're not going to be able to just say tank mix this, that, or this. All the companies will have to be approved to have tank mix partners with the dicamba. Nozzles, operating pressure. This past year we used TTL2s, a very coarse, what I call a very coarse, ultra coarse particle. Very fat dropping, air induced, low chance, not a lot of fine, so you don't get as much drift. And there will be some requirements around using certain tips. Boom height started out at 24 inches. This past year we went down to 20 inches. Just keeping that boom closer to the target, you're going to reduce your chances of drift. And then weed height, about 4 inches. That's about right. I've seen it kill a bigger pigweed at 4 inches, but if you spray in small weeds, you're going to get good results. And ground speeds up to 15 mile an hour. Personally, I think 15 is way too fast. You need to be, at 8 to 10 mile an hour. And then triple rinse. You don't need an approved tank cleaner for dicamba. You just need a good, high quality tank cleaner. So, and most all your retailers will carry those approved tank cleaners. The main thing is triple rinse. That's something you want to remember with dicamba. You need to make sure it's pretty water soluble, but you need to get water through there about 3 times.
What's up with the wind? Why do they want so much wind?
Well, it's a good question. You notice you can see down at 0 to 3. The reason they don't want those applications going out was when it's still or 0 to 3, there's a chance that you can get, I guess you could say the inversion. Normally when you got 0 wind, there's a potential very early in the morning that you may have inversion. So it suspends that fine droplet. And then when the wind does pick up, it can move it off to another field. So that's the reason they want a little bit of wind versus no wind. Bolt technology is something new from Pioneers. It is an exclusive trait. This is 50T15, exciting technology for us, I think, going forward. This was at our Crawfordsville, Arkansas site. This had a full-blown program in front. We had an at-plant herbicide burned down, early post-residual. But to tell you a little bit about it, it is a new trait from us. It's a dual mode of action. It's an ALS1, ALS2 trait. If you want to say, basically ALS on steroids, or STS being on steroids. It has more tolerance to ALS chemistry than any other STS being on the market. So this is a good thing for us. It will only be in Pioneer exclusive varieties, and it will be a dual trait. It'll have the both trait as well as the glyphosate trait. So when you buy the VR SOYBEAN, is what it'll be called, it has glyphosate tolerance as well as ALS tolerance as well. And it's going to allow us to use some different herbicides. We haven't worked out all the concepts yet, but maybe have to look at some different herbicides in those both acres. More weed control. We're always looking for ways to increase our weed control. And also the other thing you want to do is prevent some of that stress early, maybe from behind the planter treatment. All the ALS chemistry's got a really good tolerance behind the planter. If you did get a cold, wet soil and soybeans aren't growing as well, since you were using canopy, you'd have more tolerance with this particular gene. The other thing, if you like leadoff's a very good early pre-plant residual. I think it's the best on the market. If you look at it as many times as we have, they would agree with us. But you'll be able to, if you get inside of 30 days and you got to make that application in 20 days, you're okay. You can come back and plant a bolt soybean. You could actually do it in 0 days. Now we'd rather have your leadoff out early, that 30-day window, but if you get delayed and you need to use a little bit closer to planting, you can do that. Of course, if you like finesse, we got some spaces in Kentucky and Tennessee where finesse is really big. You can plant back with a bolt of soybeans. But it is an exclusive trait from Pioneer. Just real quick, looking at plant back, it says bolt, 0 days on leadoff applications, and then 30 days for without SDS without boat, and then 30 days for the SDS. So it gives you some more flexibility around planting using burn down herbicide. This was actually lead off apply that planting, and you can make up to 4X application lead off, and these beans are going to look the same way. Very good tolerance, you know, super tolerance to an STS, to an LS type herbicide. Synchrony, the good thing about bolt, you can raise your rate up to 1 ounce. The label rate on any soybean is 3/8 of an ounce, but if you want to add some residual in a post program, let's say you have some nutseeds out there, and you need to help control that, Synchrony would be a good way if you run 3/4 to an ounce rate. You get some pretty good nutseeds control. If you got some big morning glories you're having trouble with, it's a good opportunity to kind of load up on your Synchrony and get not only some residual, but also get better contact activity on those tough weeds that you may have out there. This is rotation back from behind a finesse application, 6 months, whether it's a boat. Really the same as the STS, 18 months if you don't have a boat or an STS. We've got 2 varieties. We're going into 4.9, 49 T09, and then we got a 50 T15. We had a test, we actually looked at 3 different herbicides at this study in Leland, Mississippi. We actually looked at a new concept, and we looked at lead off just right behind the planter just to get another look at the tolerance. And then we looked at boundary, just a standard product. But in all that, when we took a look at all the data behind these both soybeans, very respectable. On this particular site, they all made over 80 bushels. So you know, these beans, they'll yield on the high end, but so if you're looking for a super SDS trait. But another thing about in the Mid-South, I think we've got a really good fit. Everybody, we got a lot of rice in Arkansas. Well, we're using grass for regimen, LS type post-grass herbicide in the rice. You can plant, you know, these soybeans around those rice fields and not have to worry about the drift. Now the drift from some of the ALS rice herbicides to an SDS can be, you can see quite a bit of stunning. Behind these both beans, we looked at it, I'd actually sprayed them right over the top and got a really good tolerance. So that's another, you know, kind of a benefit of using both soybeans and kind of using around some of these rice fields where guys won't dare apply these grass or regimen. Really, we will have a low volatile formulation pending export and chemistry approval. I think the big advantage, do I think Roundup extends a silver bullet? Probably not, but it's a bronze bullet. I'm glad we have it. It's a good tool to have in the toolbox to help manage some of these resistant weeds, especially the ragweed complexes, the pigweeds, kochia out west. So it's going to be a good fit in the Delta and the Southeast region. And then for this year, we'll have 2 varieties of both available. We'll have probably, you know, Kelly may have a little bit some response with 3.8 available, but really for commercial sale, it'll probably be 2017. And you'll see us start backgrounding more bolt technology into some other, even some of the extended varieties going forward. So, you know, you're going to see that trait kind of move forward as we launch more extended varieties as well. With that, I'll open it up for a few more comments, questions.
When you're running the imbibe right behind the planter,
Yes,
I've
sir.
noticed, especially in this buckshot over here at Blackfish, if we catch a rain
Wrong time.
right there, oh, we're having terrible damage with the Valor. I mean,
Yeah.
it's taking it 2 to 3 weeks to grow out of it.
Yeah. And that was right. You get that splash down, you know, I wish I could say bolt would eliminate that. It eliminate any stress from the ALS component of that herbicide, but Valor is probably not eliminating stress from Valor. Valor's going to be Valor. It's going to treat both soybean and like it will.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter which, if it's a product of Valor and we're having that problem.
Yeah, that's right. And you're not going to. I call
I'm
it.
telling my growers, look, let's get a rain on it before you plant. We need to put it out 2 weeks ahead of time, or if you can.
If you want to eliminate some stress early and get rid of splash damage with flumioxamines, that's a great way to do it. I agree.
Yeah. Last year was awful. Though. We got a big rain and then it cooled off.
Yeah.
And it was, some of them was 5 weeks recovery.
Yeah.
They recovered, and you know the beans did well, but I think they would have done a lot better if they hadn't been put through that stress earlier.
Well, and on heavy ground, where the soil stay wetter and cooler, and it just, the beans just don't want to grow off, or more anaerobic.
Well, and sometimes once that happens, even with the seed treatment stuff, phytophthora gets on.
Yeah, that's right. And you got to worry about pathogens, disease, and.
And that's all because it splashed onto the plant off the ground.
They come up through it. It hurt them coming up through it. I mean, it wasn't splashed. It was more of a,
This is picking up through the
it
shit.
picked it up when it, yeah.
We
when it
see
come
that.
up.
I'm seeing it on this place where Kyle Lee.
Yeah, it is.
It's on there, kind of cranking them up. Kind
Yeah,
of
first-
mouse ears them and.
The first set of trifoliates looked almost like Catalina's, you know, the way it bunched them up and made them thick.
Yeah,
And I think the worst damage I seen last year was with Fierce, but in defense of Fierce, we put that Fierce out and got all that rain on it early. And we didn't spray the beans again until we put the mox on them for a harvest date.
yeah. Remember,
And they cut
Fierce,
54 bushels.
Fierce has got, you know, it's gonna have Valor and Zidua mixed together, so you
Yeah.
got PPO and 4C mixed together. So you'll see some of the same responses
Yeah.
from Fierce application.
And, you know, everybody worries about Syncor, but they're running the third pound of vegetable for a long time, even on, you know, silk loans and not had, I mean, every great once in a while you'll get that perfect grain that hurts you.
Yeah.
But I see a lot more damage from Valor than they Syncor.
Yeah. Well, I think with the PPO resistance there, and as we're gonna see more of the next few years across the board. Now, you used to burn the skirt off of soybean,
Oh, yeah.
get as much wheat control as you could back in the late seventies, early eighties, but, so we may have to get used to seeing a little more crop response, you know, going forward, but, every using a good pit weed material. I always say about a weed control for every ounce, you know, if you put 4 ounces, 5 ounces out, you get 45. That's all you're gonna get on pit weed. You're gonna have to layer that next application.
So we'd always use chemical.
Yeah,
And
which is
that's-
guy you're using anyway. So workforce, yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Good thing. Any other comments or Bill, anything you want to add?
No, right on, you can get that developed component out 10, 14 days ahead, you reduce that.
You do reduce
You
that.
take it out, but you reduce the risk rate.
That's exactly right. I agree with what you're saying. That's why I said on that plant, 14 days to planting.
Yeah.
So the only reason I like it at planting is because I want to extend that pig weed residual as long as I can. You know, I'm being selfish because I hate pig weed. And the more I can reduce them, you know, the population early, the better I'm going to be. But once it, you got to keep it from getting out of the ground. You got to spray dirt. If you spray dirt, keep it from getting out of the ground. You got a better chance of controlling that pepper wood than you would any other way. So, but I'm glad to have extended. You know, I think it's going to be great technology moving forward and it allows them to manage some of the stuff that weeds that are out there. So.
Has anybody tried any low rocks over here in the, over here or anything?
Low rocks?
Low rocks, leave it up.
I hadn't had anything in them.
Well, I'm just,
Who's on those?
I honestly, I don't, we just had the conversation about it, that's not about something on pig weed.
We've had that conversation, they've been,
I haven't seen you in a while, but, you know, it got so pricey at one time, but, you know, what is it? And, but I haven't seen you in quite a while.
Yeah, he was left, got his, they got rid of all their goods.
Yeah.
Never named them
Yeah.
yeah.
again. They're wrong.
And there's quite a bit of post grad.
You know, there's a lot of young men that haven't, you know, that all they've ever known is around the grading systems. So, you know, some of these old guys like me, you know, we can reach back a little bit, and gather a little information that they may not have. So, I mean, reality is we're trying to manage the different, you know, when you think about weed control going forward, it's going to be a kitchen sink type. You know, back in the old days, prescription weed control really meant something, where we managing the weed, right, prescription stuff.
I expect the next few years will be a learning curve.
It's going to be a learning curve.
Yeah, they had Roundup working in $13 beans, they don't understand.
And then managing PPO.
There's a lot more acres than they were back then too.
You know, I know.
We'll get around time, you remember timing was important.
Exactly.
Back in the day, well, how you do that, from 6, 7, 8 acres.
We definitely got challenges everywhere. I appreciate those times. Appreciate your time.
CCA votes to send back to Ohio.